Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, we have a special episode today. You already see I am not in the studio by myself today. We have Cupful Delights. We got Miss Candice coming through with her journey of strength with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. Vibe with me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives studio, Candice. You on mute. Come on off mute and talk. Say something to the people. Let them know you here.
Yeah. Hey, people, I am here. I am very, very excited to be here. I just love that intro. I was just vibing. I put myself on mute because I was like, okay, let me vibe to this. All right.
But that was nice. Most of the time, we don't always get the people to go on mute. They be like, hey, all over the microphone. And I'm like, okay, let's get it. We lit. I'm feeling it. So welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. I found you on Instagram. I was so excited. I was, doing research, trying to find those visible and vocal people of color with polycystic ovary syndrome hashtags that had, some type of purpose or some type of advocacy going on with. And I was like, ooh, Cupful Delights. That sounds interesting. And I was like, let me see. And then I started going on your stuff and I said, oh, this is good. This is informative. Started sharing your stories. But where did Cupful Delights where did they even come from?
You know what? My journey started when I was first diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome. And, it has a lot of different issues, but Cupful Delights started because I wanted to bring some delight, some happiness to the scene. And I didn't want to live in this world that I could possibly be depressed. I could possibly be infertile. I could possibly never have a period, or not have it regularly. And so with all those things, and those are just three conditions, it comes with many, many more: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, the list continues. But what delight can we bring in this situation? Because we have to find our own happiness. And I just found so much happiness in drinking a cup of tea. It settles me, it grounds me, and then it's healthy. So that's how Cupful Delights started.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I too didn't want to go the route of having like PCOS or endometriosis or adenomyosis or fibroids in my name. I didn't want to be identified as that. I wanted it to have a progressive vibe to it. So I went with 4 vibrations. You get all of these diagnoses and then you're like, okay, how do I live now? Like what's my lifestyle look like? How do I think? What's my mindset? What's my eating habits going to be? How do I plan to move? How do I plan to heal when it comes to that? And I was like, you know what? I'm living forward. I'm not looking in the past. I'm not trying to figure out what all is really going on in my body. I'm just going to have these 4 vibrations and I'm just going to live with abundance. I want to be proactive with what's going on in my healing journey. I want to be intentional. So I was like, 4 vibrations is we are forward motion and we are vibing high. So I completely get why you wanted to find some delight in it, because it can be depressing. But speaking of depressing, tell me what has been your most struggle or the biggest challenge you've had to overcome when it comes to polycystic ovary syndrome?
I would say it's definitely for me been the infertility. And it was a surprise because, I was raised to go to college and get a great job and find that husband. And, a child will come when it's supposed to come, when all these things happen and they'll just naturally come. And that's been my dream in my head until I realized it didn't play out exactly that. And so I've been in a career-driven mode for quite some time now, and I got married a little bit later in life. I'm now 42 and trying to conceive, right, in some sense or whatnot. So the infertility has been the biggest pitfall. It first started, though, with high blood pressure. And so whenever I would have weight gain, I would then inherit this like high blood pressure. And a lot of people said, oh, it's because of family driven, but I knew it was really weight gain. So how can I get off this weight? How can I lose this weight? When I tried to lose weight, it really just wasn't popping off. And then things just started connecting. Well, why can't I control this high blood pressure? Why can't I lose weight? And then this diagnosis, when I went to a fertility specialist, said I had polycystic ovary syndrome. And so many women do have it, suffer with it, and may not even know they have it. And so I would say the most depressing news is just that journey of infertility, the journey of going through IVF, and then the journey of being a career driven woman, trying to do that balancing act and trying to have a family. And all those things come into play. So it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress. Uh, but you just have to push through it in some sense, right? And what is your core beliefs is what I really come down to. What do I really believe in at this point is best for me? And but how to push through that, because it can be very depressing. I would say that just recently, this past November 2023, I went through a time where I was supposed to have an embryo transfer. I have 3 embryos. Because of polycystic ovary syndrome, I had a lot of eggs, right? But are the eggs normal, right? That's the question. And so when we come down to the fertilization, 3 made it. Well, I was going to have a transfer in November, and it got delayed because they found some polyps, they found some fibroids, and the list got kind of long. So that was really disappointing, and it put me in a state of depression. And but my depression is a little bit different. It's like a 2-3 day, because I'm not staying there very, very long. I'm going to acknowledge what's going on, and then I'm going to get up. I'm going to get up and see what I can do differently. And I'm so glad we connected, because we really do have the same belief system that I don't want Candice PCOS associated with my name for the rest of my life, right? It is something that some people do, and I respect that. But Candice vibes high, Candice Cupful Delights. That's the what I want to dwell on, as far as putting that out in the universe, putting that out in my life, and what God has in store for me.
So I think that was beautiful, and I appreciate you for sharing that struggle. And I think there's so many people with PCOS that struggle with the fertility piece. Is you're a woman, and like you said, you kind of expect to have kids, or you want to have kids. Not everybody
Right.
wants to have kids, but it just seems like a lot of us who are facing challenges or experiencing polycystic ovary syndrome, a lot of us do want children, even when we want children and we're single by choice, and we still want
Mhm.
children because we really want to embrace motherhood and experience motherhood. What would you say to someone that's struggling right now with fertility issues, that has PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, that, like you said, can get very depressing, down and out, and they might not be as resilient as Candice Cupful Delights, where it only takes her 2 to 3 days and she's bouncing back and she's figuring out,
Right.
what's that next strategy, because I'm not going to let my body beat me. My body's going to work with me so I can get the goal. What would you say to them right now?
I would say 2 things. And the first is really find those little things. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but you have to, at one point, we all need to recognize that we bring our own happiness. And so we can't depend on something else to make us happy. I personally can't say, I'm going to be happy when I get married. I'm going to be happy when I have a child. I'm going to be, and then, you see the pattern that starts. But can you do something that makes you happy without this like big event occurring? And I think it's helpful to get out of that depressive state. And again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, I'm a life coach. But in the sense, I know that those little things make a difference. So it's baby stepping. And so if it is listening to music, it is vibing out. If it's taking a run, if it's really hugging your dog who you just fed, right? If it's painting, guitar lessons. I mean, these are things that I have on my plate, but what will bring you that little bit of happiness, that little bit of hope? And I think that is helpful in looking at those days that are dark, that you can find some light. Sometimes it's just as simple as eating a healthy meal, right? Just nourishing your body. My mother asked me the other day, she said, "So what was the highlight of your day?" And I said, "I went to church and I went grocery shopping with my husband, Alvin, and I had a great wrap sandwich. It was a veggie wrap." And I said, "That was the highlight." She said, "Church wasn't your highlight?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love church, but like I really like that sandwich. That was my highlight." I'm not afraid to say that. So when you ask that question, what can we really focus on? And the second thing is, not only is it the little things, sometimes we can call it self-soothing. Sometimes we can even say it's how can we get grounded? How can we get focused? But really, what would you like to do? And be your best advocate. Be your advocate. I think this entire journey has taught me to speak up for myself, because no one is going to speak up for you. We assume, and nothing wrong with your doctor that you're seeing. It's nothing wrong with the doctor that I'm seeing, but we assume that when we see an OBGYN or we see our primary, they say, "Oh, just keep trying," right? They say, "Just keep trying," or "You're okay," but you know something's not right. It's a reason you know something's not right. It was innately put in you to understand how you feel, and no one else does. So I encourage you to be your biggest advocate. Speak up for yourself, ask questions, get so curious. Get so curious. Seek out individuals like Giovanni and learn, right? Because there's a ministry in all of this. There's research and data that you can find a place to say, "Hmm, this makes sense. Let me ask more questions." And why didn't they bring this up? And then I'll leave you with this. I went to my OBGYN and I said, just out of curiosity, I knew what was going to happen. "How can you help me with PCOS?" Because on your brochure, right, it says, "I help individuals with PCOS." "Oh, well, there's really nothing we can do. You should go see your fertility specialist." And then I went to the fertility specialist and she said, "Well, there's really nothing you can do with PCOS. Just don't eat a lot of carbs. But really, it is your OBGYN that can help you with your PCOS." So you see that back and forth, and no one takes accountability. So are you going to take accountability for yourself? Are you going to be an advocate for yourself? Right? Right. That's what this platform is all about, right? Being an advocate, speaking up, vibing high, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think it was something first. I heard an inner foodie in there, and I'm definitely a foodie. So the fact that you were talking about that veggie wrap, you sound like me. Like I go crazy about a good food experience, and I'm now like at a year of this plant-based lifestyle and embracing this plant-based lifestyle, and I absolutely love it. But even at school, my students ask me like, "Miss Ford, what'd you have for lunch today?" If I have a certain type of juice that I made, they want to take a swig of my juice and taste my fresh fruit and vegetable
I
juice and
love
say whether they like it or they don't like it, or if I need to add more pineapple or take less bell pepper out. So I'm starting to become that person that they see as this person who loves food, but it's not the typical food that they're used to or seeing. So they
right.
they like that it's different, and I like that it's different too because all of my students are females and they're
Yeah.
females in middle school. So we clearly know they're experiencing periods at this time. And for
Yeah.
someone to be eating more fruits and vegetables and making that a norm, hopefully that allows them to start engaging at a younger age. So that way they could start feeling better as they navigate through their menstrual health. And then there was another thing you said, talking about like your OBGYN. First, I think you're the first person I heard that I guess you kind of was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome by infertility specialist.
Yeah.
Most of the time you hear it's kind of brought up by OBGYN. For me, and a lot of other people I know that have endometriosis, it was a visit to the ER, and seeing those images and being able to see that there's a mass on my ovary, or, the pain that you're continuing to experience in these symptoms might be endometriosis. So now you take that back to, your primary care or your OBGYN. But you're the first that I've ever heard of that your infertility specialist was able to tell you. And you're also one of the first that told me it was high blood pressure for you. For me, the first sign was irregular periods, and then the physical facial hair, the
Oh yeah.
excess facial
I
hair
have
on
both of
there.
those. So.
I know, but those, like,
Those-
just seeing and hearing the irregular periods and seeing,
yeah.
the facial hair was like, okay, yeah, definitely believe it's PCOS in addition to
Yeah.
what the imaging was already saying. And then I just appreciate you going ahead and already saying it at the beginning of this podcast, of this episode, about being your own advocate. You cannot leave your health in the hands of someone else. That is the whole purpose of Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives. We are trying to empower you with our journey of strength to be an advocate for yourself. Take the knowledge that you get from the healthcare system and then go make the best educated decision that aligns with your lifestyle to help you live the best life that you can live based on the information and the body that you're given. And just because they say one thing doesn't mean that has to be the end. That's why you have Delights. That's why you have 4 vibrations. That's why we're here to empower you, because you matter. And that's why we're sharing this journey of strength and why this space is even brought together. But it was something that you were talking about. And I know you were talking about being your biggest advocate. I know that I saw on your page that you sometimes go to PCOS events, polycystic ovary syndrome events. Can you tell me, what is it like first to just be in a room of people that are really advocating for polycystic ovary syndrome? What does it feel like being in that room? And then follow up with, how do you live with purpose in that room?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So my first encounter was just doing the research, right? When I started being an advocate for myself, and then I started saying, okay, well, maybe they diagnosed me, and then I'm like, I'm not claiming it. It's not mine, right? And so you ignore it, and you're like, wait a second, I still have these symptoms. Okay, I still have the chin hair. I still have high blood pressure, blah, 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 right? So then just researching it. So it's PCOS Challenge. That has been the most supportive, most loving environment of individuals. And Sasha and William Ote have been such a blessing. And they're like the directors of the program. And they're really, I would say the most latest event is having a patient focused meeting where patients are in the room expressing their needs, but to the industry, to the medical industry, and those who are the decision makers on protocol, because there's technically not a protocol for PCOS. And so that to me is big. It's not about like, oh, bringing in a speaker, but it's about like, what actual legislation change are you making? And that's what I saw that. And and they want you to partake in, I would say they want you to partake in that movement. It's not like, hey, just join our event. No, hey, you are part of our event. And that's what is so joyful about it. And then meeting the women who share their stories. The first PCOS Challenge event was a 5K walk, and it was in the cold heart of Atlanta. I remember for some reason in October, it was just one of those cold days, but like, why is October cold in Atlanta anyway? But it was. And I went with my husband, Alvin Darien, and it was just it was such a blessing just to see people share their stories. And we were just there together. Things that I thought was just happening to me. Like, I thought my chin hair since I was in high school was like not a big deal. Like, we all have that, right? And I thought that we all skip periods, right? I thought, oh, your cycle is 35 days, right? I didn't know. No one said it. And when I expressed it to a primary, they're like, yeah, it's stress, girl.
They told me the same thing. I was a dancer, and so it was more so like I did tap, jazz, ballet, hip hop, lyrical, and then they're just like, well, kids that are active like you are dancing all the time, it's normal for you to miss your period. Or as I got older and I got into college, and it was like, oh, you're just stressed, and stress will cause you to miss your period. Oh, it must have been something you ate. And so they always normalized irregular periods. They always normalized the facial hair, because I was like, oh, well, I see it in my family. I see it in, some of my aunts, my mom, my grandma. So, people just pluck. Others have to, do a little bit more. But no one ever said I have polycystic ovary syndrome, or, hey, this is showing that there might be a hormone imbalance, or there's something going on with your hormones. It's just like, nah, it's my family. The hot sweats, like sweating at night. My granddaddy sweats at night. So I'm thinking, well, I'm sweating, I'm waking up drenched. Well, my granddaddy does it. So, chunk it up to hereditary. And there's so many things that we just try to pass off as normal, or other people pass off as normal, that are not. It's your body speaking to you and talking to you. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not connecting, if you're not aware of what's going on, you won't be able to take that information to someone who will be able to say, oh, something's wrong, something's not right. This could be a sign of. But because you pass it off as normal, or people make it seem like it's okay, you just go to your annual physical and you don't say anything. And for some reason, even though, like you said, since high school, you know, with the facial hair has been there for me. I don't think every time I've gone, I had a fresh wax, you know, like a fresh hair wax, to where they couldn't see it, but yet they don't say anything. So I'm with you on that. I love that the PCOS challenge is so patient centered. I think who better to listen to but the patients. And I think sometimes we get it backwards when we sit there and we let the medical professionals try to dictate and dialogue, especially males who don't even have the issues that females are going through, trying to put in place the protocols of what's actually happening and going on with female bodies. So I love that the PCOS challenge even exists. I'm so glad that you told me about it. And I'm glad that there's a sisterhood amongst us that's learning. And even when it comes to Facebook, like being able to be a part of like the PCOS Black group, there's like thousands, like over thousands of Black women now that's in one shared space that can talk about the common issues that they're experiencing. And it's like, before I even heard of it, before I was even diagnosed with it, I didn't even know, like you said, someone else has this, let alone the more you keep living, you start finding friends, you know, or friends of friends that say, you got PCOS? Yeah, my cousin has that. It's starting to become a little bit more common now that you're vocal, you're visible, and you're getting into those spaces that, you know, that you're learning and you're feeling more empowered because you're around those people. So I love that the PCOS challenge even exists, and that they're doing things on the forefront to really help patients navigate the healthcare system and to hold the healthcare system accountable for how they treat us when they see patients, because sometimes it takes a while before you even get the diagnosis. So I think that is really beautiful. So you get this diagnosis of PCOS. What do you do to start changing your lifestyle?
So the first event was just information. It was just finding information. And Cupful Delights has always been in my head. I really love tea. Like that, like, what do you want to drink? I want to drink tea, right? I'm at dinner and everyone's drinking drinks. And I'm like, I want a cup of tea, hot tea, right? And so that's my dig. And so when you say, like, looking at just like that entire journey, what was the question again?
First, lifestyle changes. Like, you got this diagnosis. How do you start changing your lifestyle? No, you okay.
Yes. So the lifestyle changes was the tea. Because but then when the infertility happened, I wanted to start doing eating healthy, but it wasn't like a big push until I started having these health issues. So I hired, and again, this can be a very expensive if you really start digging, right? If you really start searching. So I don't want the fact that that you have to go to a fertility specialist to get diagnosed. You should be able to go to your doctor to get diagnosed, right? At that time, I just didn't have the knowledge that that could exist. It just so happened. But the food is so very imperative. And I've always been into healthy eating and natural healing and naturopathic remedies. But when I realized it's just so much deeper than that, and that I also changed eating meat for a time period, eating more of the plant based, that's when it started shifting. That's when the blood pressure really went down. And
Let's
I'm like,
go. Come on.
and that's what I needed. You just look for those small wins, right? Even if it's the facial hair, like, okay, now that I have scarring on my chin because I plucked it for, I don't know, 20 years, right? Now I'm going to do waxing, or if I'm going to do, laser treatment, that small thing, now it's not as bad. Now it's not as dark. It's a win for me. So I look for those small wins just to give me some hope and to keep me going. So the food, back to the food, one of the major changes was that plant-based, but that was derived out of a miscarriage, right?
Mhm.
So I had a miscarriage this past June. And then I just said, I have nothing else to lose. Like what else could I do? So let me just try this plant-based. And then I end up enjoying it. I felt lighter. My digestion was good, along with the tea. It just was like a nice harmony for myself. Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we hear people say it and they're just like, man, they just talking. They're not,
Hmm.
the plant based can't make them feel that good. Like, I tried it, it didn't work like that. But I feel like people try to make changes, but they're not consistent with it, or they don't try it as long. So
Right.
you eat a certain way, or you have a certain lifestyle for 20 years, 30 years, and then you say, oh, well, I'm gonna try this plant-based lifestyle, and you might try it for a week. You might
Yeah.
try it for 30 days. You're not going to see, your body hasn't even gotten the opportunity to truly adjust to the lifestyle quite yet, based on all the years you've been living a certain different way. And the body is just so complex. But I felt the same way that you felt. Like, I went plant based. Like, over time, I started taking things out of my, I guess we can say, diet, can
Right.
start consuming certain things. And
Mhm.
then as soon as I went ahead and got that juicer, and I was like, okay,
Right.
ta-ta to the salmon and the eggs. That was the last to go. And I've just been feeling good ever since. My periods have been regular. Once I started moving consistently, and then I upped my miles to like 4 miles a day, the facial hair started going down even more. So it's just like, it wasn't as much. I was like, oh my goodness, I can be
Mhm.
late to my next appointment. I don't even have to run it up, because the walking and the moving really was helping. I was like really shocked, and I was excited, and I was feeling good. And now I get so excited about posting like plant-based food porn. Like, it's just, and then like, and black chefs, like black plant-based
Oh
chefs,
yeah.
like, they just have a special place in my heart. Like, I love the creativity. I don't want to get in the kitchen all the time to try the different stuff. I just want to eat it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, it's so inspirational and it's encouraging, and it makes me not even want to look back, because not only am I feeling good, I'm eating good food that's good for me. And of course,
Absolutely.
that's where the empowered plate comes from, because I'm that high energy foodie. Like, I love good food. So when I have something that's really good, I'm having my coworkers try it. My students might come up and try it. And that takes me back to something else you said earlier, when you were like, find the little joy in what you do have. So I
Mhm.
haven't had my own, children myself. I haven't birthed any children, but I'm a teacher. And every
Mm.
year I get to have kids for about 10 months. And then, for 2 months I'm free. I'm child free. And I love it, because it gives me that opportunity to still have kids in my life on a regular basis. But you also talked about my dog, Spencer. So Spencer's my emotional support animal. Like, who's walking with me? Spencer. We're gonna knock these miles out together. Like, it feels so much better having someone with you, and someone you can love and care on. So
And
even
he's
in
your motivation too, because the days you don't want to go out, he's like, "Look, we going."
that part, like, his heart matters too. Like, we gotta move. Like, we both gotta have this good health status. So I completely get it, and I love that you hit on seeing your blood pressure drop. And I don't. How long did it take for you to actually start seeing some changes in your body to respond to your lifestyle shift?
I think about 30 days. So I started in July. I ran a 5K, which I'd even practiced for, but I was just so excited. I used to run half marathons. And then, I would say about 30 days, because in August, I would say mid August, that's when I saw the change. And I was like, man, that was it. But I will add this, many people say they try it and that then they get off of it, and I couldn't do it. And I've tried to be vegetarian before, and man, oh man, I really wanted meat. Okay. I don't know what was going on, but I just wanted meat. But that's where my body was at that time. And it's nothing wrong with those who eat meat,
Nothing at
or
all.
whatever you eat. You can eat cookies, whatever you do, you. But the point I'm trying to make is you have to really want to do it. And you do have to listen to your body. So just listen to your body and how it responds. You have to be aware of what's going on. Even those who say, "Oh, I have PCOS," and then they're like, "But I don't have any symptoms." You have symptoms, but take the time to listen to your body. Take the time to write down, I noticed this when I ate that, or I noticed this is happening. And it out of us, all of a sudden, it started happening. So I think that's important, to just be aware of your body at the time that you want to make these changes.
I completely agree. Like nothing is wrong if you choose to eat meat, because meat might actually be serving your body in some way, shape, form, or fashion. It's my healing, my journey, and we're just here to share what we're doing, what
Oh,
we've experienced, what worked for us. So you can kind of pick what you want to try within your own lifestyle that we're sharing with you and figure out what works best for you. That's why we're sharing. So there's no one size fits all approach at all,
mm,
because like I said, there's some people who went plant based and then they felt like their body needed to go back and get something else in there. And that's the whole point of you being empowered to make your own decision. Like it's just about you doing what's best for you. Did you see any issues though in regards to polycystic ovary syndrome with dairy? Did you see any changes in consuming dairy?
not yet. I haven't seen any changes, but I do know, like with the tea and with the plant based, and then working out regularly. Like now, I went through from July. I went through a period. I want to run. I want to do yoga. I want to eat plant based foods. Right. So that's what I did. From that point on, um, I just then it shifted. Now I want to do strength training, right? So I want to do training. I want to do plant-based food. I want to drink more tea. So I've seen regular periods through that. I've seen less hair through that. I've seen still a maintaining blood pressure medication, because like for me, I was taking just a small dose of it, but when I would take it, I'm like, I'm so dehydrated. I feel it in me, and it's just like I just wanted it out. I just wanted those drugs out. And with the infertility drugs, right? Though it's doing something positive, I'm a science project, really. Well, that's how I felt, right? Because I'm creating an environment that's not naturally happening. So I just found a great flow, a great flow. As far as the fertility goes, I haven't seen that change yet, but I do believe there is some space and there is the right time for it to happen. I do believe it's the right time.
I get that. I get it all the way. And so what you talk about is like where you are right now with working out. I was doing, like we said, being educated and doing research. I was researching yesterday and I saw that there's like for every phase
Hmm.
of your menstrual cycle,
Oh
there's
yeah,
certain
yeah,
exercises you should be doing
yeah.
to best help your body respond and appreciate and honor the movement. And so, like when
Hmm.
you were saying, I'm like, okay, I can see that because for me, and it might be the endometriosis, low impact works for me, and it works for
Hmm.
me like consistently. But when I would go into the gym and I would try like lifting weights or doing leg press or doing certain things, it would trigger the pain in my left side where my adenomyosis was cited. So it's just like you really have to figure out what works best for you, because I've seen some people when it comes to PCOS or polycystic ovary syndrome with those set of hormones or that extra testosterone, it's the
Hmm.
lifting weights that their body really, really does respond to, versus someone who might have other diagnoses. It might
Hmm.
be best to keep it low impact, not high intensity, and not stress too much of the muscle. So again, that's another aspect of figuring out what works best for your body and how your body responds. Because like you said,
Hmm.
PCOS, we can have weight gain like it's nothing and have no idea where it's coming from. It wasn't a difference in what you're eating. And then we can have some unexplained weight loss. And like, okay, so how did that happen at
That's
times
what
too? So it
happened.
just depends. So it just kind of depends. But at the end of the day, it's those cravings that really get us sometimes, whether it's the sugar cravings or even just the carb cravings for the bread. So it's just really like having a plan in place to
Hmm.
know what you're going to be eating. So
Hmm.
that way you're still honoring your body and giving it that love it deserves by choosing the right foods that's going to make you still feel good after you consume it. So I
You said
think that's the
two
two
things
things.
I want to point out. You said the low impact, and I can really relate to that because I only know how to lose weight with high impact. And when I lost the most weight in my life, it was high impact for an hour with the trainer, Lifetime Fitness in New Jersey. And when I was doing that, I'm like, I am exhausted. Like, I need to go home. I need to sleep. I can't even work. But I lost this weight. So I'm like, okay, that's what I have to do. But then I went to a coach, and she shared with us how to set boundaries.
Mm.
And I had made a comment to her because it was in that time of November, and she said, "Look, this doesn't have to be forever." Now I'm thinking in my mind, I will always have PCOS because they said it was no cure. I will always have to eat plant-based, right? I will always have to do these things. But she kind of opened up my mind to think this doesn't have to be forever. It's like this period, this present moment of time, that's where you're at. So this present moment of time, you are noticing that you have to do low impact, right? Maybe it might change, right? And that's saying that it has to, right? But it could, but it's just being flexible and forgiving in yourself that you don't have to do what that post said. Like I did, a leg press and I did it for an hour and I lost this weight. That may not be you, right? And plant-based may not be someone else, right? But this is where we are in that space. Yeah.
I love that you said it's where you are right now. It's like life. It's seasons. There's
Mhm.
seasons, there's chapters in life. So what PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, might look like for you today might not be what it looks like for you 2 years from now. It
Mhm.
6 months from now. Like it could totally be a different thing because it's a whole body experience. It's a whole body experience that you don't know how your body's going to respond. But take it back to boundaries. I love that you said it's all about setting boundaries. Boundaries reminds me again about like mindset.
Mm.
Talk to me a little bit more about your mindset. How do you maintain a healthy mindset, a resilient mindset? What is it with your mindset that helps you continue to have a journey of strength when you are challenged or experiencing issues with polycystic ovary syndrome or just life as a Black woman?
Life as a Black woman, right? I still believe you got to find those things that make you happy, that you're not trying to get happiness from someone else, right? I told my husband, and I love him, but I said, you can't make me happy. I have to at some point make myself happy, right? So, what are those things that make you happy? Those healthy things that make you happy. I have to insert healthy, right? Those positive things, and make a list, right? That will shift your mindset because the longer you stay in that place, you're going to be in that place. But if you're able to find, maybe it is taking a bubble bath, maybe it is just taking a walk or going outside in nature. Some people it's cleaning, right? Uh, some people it's shopping, but be careful on that aspect of shopping, right? But what
Boundaries.
you have boundaries, right? Set those boundaries in that shopping. But what are those things that make you happy? And then surround yourself with people that are like minded and that have a good vibration, that will energize you and that they don't take away because there's some vampires out here and they love taking away your energy. So who's going to give you that sense of purpose? Who's going to enlighten you? Who's going to add to you, right? They may be adding to extra energy, right? Extra happiness to you, right? But you're not totally dependent on them to make you happy.
Agreed. And I think it was I love that you mentioned it's an internal thing when it comes to happiness because so many times we get caught up in thinking that there's something external that's going to make us happy or someone. And a lot of times we also, and it goes into love, a lot of times we also want other people to love us before we sit there and really truly embrace everything about us and love us. And how we show up and love ourselves every single day goes about how you choose to see yourself, but what you believe about yourself, what you think about yourself, and then the decisions you make for yourself. But it could easily be into a victim mindset of my body is betraying me or my body's not allowing me to do this or do that, or I'm
Or I don't
embarrassed
even
when
know
it
my
comes
body. Like I don't even know who I am anymore, right? Right?
that and it could be debilitating. But like you said, it's kind of like, you know, who are you? Who do you want to be? What boundaries are you putting into your regular day to make sure that you're giving some time to just embrace you, to just sit with you? And then also when you're sitting with you, let's talk about some of the things that you are grateful for.
Mhm.
And it's that mindset shifting. It's that introspect where you're turning it around and we're like, okay, what is going good versus what all is going bad. And I think that's a beautiful thing when you talk about just finding the happiness, the small things. It
Mhm.
could just be a simple mindset shift. It can be a gratitude journal. It can be just reflecting on who you are, or it could just be, I love me. And what does that love look like today but me loving me? Also, I like when you said taking a bath. Like I'm good with a good magnesium bath. The
Oh,
magnesium bath with some essential oils, like I just came across that one not too long ago. Like you said, a Cupful of Delights, some good herbal tea. Like that's just calming to start my day in a classroom, and I'm just sipping on it. Like I don't know what drama y'all gonna bring as a whole bunch of girls, but at the end of the day, I'm
How
already
about
coming.
you?
If it's not my tea, it's my juice, and I'm all right with it. So I love that, and I just think again that goes back to boundary setting, but it also goes into self love and self care and how you show up for you every single day, despite what your body is experiencing. So definitely y'all stay light with how you
Right,
see yourself, and don't forget to give yourself grace.
right.
No one is expecting perfection.
Nope.
No one should want, you just want to continue to progress. So give yourself grace, but just love on you.
Right.
Love on you like
I love,
nobody else can.
I love
And I
it.
think that's what matters most. But you were talking to me before, and I thought it was really cool.
Uh-huh.
But you were telling me about like the birth control and going against your doctor's orders when it came to birth control, but then you started talking about these phases in your cycle that you started tracking to better get
Yeah.
educated when it goes in there. Can you walk them through that? Can you walk us through that whole experience?
So I don't encourage anyone to do this, but this is what I did. Okay. So during certain IVF protocols, they'll put you on birth control because they're trying to control your period because they want to be able to insert the embryo at the right time. Okay. And so when November happened, I wasn't able to take that transfer. And then the lab closed because of the holidays. Well, I start the beginning of the year and I do a lot of travel for work, which also would probably go into why I'm infertile for many ways. But with that being said, I travel a lot for work at the beginning of the year. So I knew that if I didn't have the embryo in me, then there was no reason that I couldn't work. So now I got to go back to work, right? Right. That's just a fact of life. So, am I going to be on birth control for the next 5 months or the next 3 months until I go for the next embryo transfer or the surgery to remove those polyps to do the embryo transfer? My goal was no. I'm not taking that pill, right? One, I don't like it, right? I just told you I don't even like that little 5 milligram, 10 milligram blood pressure medicine. Okay, so let alone I don't like the birth control, so I stopped taking it. Okay, so that means a couple of things could happen. One, I could get pregnant, or two, I can also learn how my cycle works by myself. And so I looked up a little device called Mira, and it's Mira. And Mira allows me to be on a stick every single morning, and it tracks like 3 different hormone levels, and I get to see my cycle in the stages that it's in. I get to take notes and say, oh, that's the day that I had all that bad food, or that's the day I had alcohol, right? That's the shift I'm now seeing in my hormones. Ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that. But I love that I'm now able to track it, because before I was doing BBT and I would take the basal temperature. So I'm taking the temperature every day at the same time, hopefully the same time. All of those come into play, but there was nothing really that was a program that was tracking it. There was nothing that was saying, these are your hormone levels, and this is how it compares to a normal user or a healthy user. As they don't say normal, but a healthy user. This is how it compares to someone with PCOS. So Mirror does cater to women that have PCOS and other conditions like endometriosis. So that is the shift that I did when I went off of birth control. The doctor doesn't even know I did it. I just did it because there's just no reason for the next 5 months to be miserable on birth control. Nothing's wrong with being on birth control, right? If you decide to do that, that's just what I decided not to do for myself at this time.
Agree. I wasn't going through any fertility experiences when it came to birth control. That was just like the first thing that they offered, I guess, to help with like pain for your periods, and I guess like trying to regulate it. And I was like, well, is it going to treat anything? Is it going to cure anything? I was like, no, there is no cure. I was like, okay, well, let's make sure we know exactly what it is. And
Mhm.
once we know exactly what it is, let's figure out other ways to do it, because it just didn't align with me for the birth control. And even that was in Jacksonville where I first was diagnosed and had my excision specialist do my stage 4 endometriosis surgery. But then it was here moving to Dallas, and then trying to make sure I found an OBGYN that's knowledgeable about endometriosis. And she asked me about, getting on birth control. And I was like, no, thank you. And she was like, well, with stage 4 endometriosis, it's just going to come back and spread like wildfires. And I was like, all right, well, if everything's looking good, my labs are looking good so far, I'm just going to continue to go down the lifestyle that I've chosen to go through right now because I'm feeling good. And I'm not feeling like there's any additional reason why I should partake in consuming birth control, because I don't know how my body's going to respond. But I also know taking in something could shift a lot of different things in my body. And I just didn't feel like it was that need. But like you said, birth control could really provide other people with the relief they need and the response they need for their body. So if that's the decision they make, go for it all the way. But like you said, it wasn't for you, and it wasn't an option that I was considering myself either.
So yourself, you just showed us like how you were an advocate. You were aware of where your body was, the things that are working for you, and that's not serving you right now, right? That the birth control wasn't serving you right now. So, kudos to you for making that decision, because that's a big decision, because a lot of doctors are not going to say, hey, you know what, you need to really do a plant-based diet because I think that's like the healthiest route to go. Like, they're not going to say that. They're just not going to say that.
They'll quick to tell you need to eat differently if your BMI is a certain way, or start moving, but they might not even know exactly what you're eating and how well you're already moving, because that also is a struggle for, some of our PCOS sisters who, have been trying their best to lose weight, have been moving, and the weight's not going anywhere. And you're saying, oh, just move, just exercise, just change the way you're eating. And they've been doing that, but it's not responding. And so they need a little bit more. But are you creating that relationship and that atmosphere to help them figure out what is best for them? But like you just said, it went from your OBGYN back to your infertility, and then they just played the little toss back and forth, and no one's really telling you exactly what you need to do. So you kind of have to figure it out. But last 2 questions for you. This question is for girl dads. And specifically those girl dads who no longer are able to have their mother in that home to kind of be that person that they go to when it's time to have that period talk, or that period support, that menstrual cycle support, where it feels natural for dads to just be a part of that conversation. And that's what I really want to make happen, is to have more dads in those conversations when it comes to period talk with their daughters, especially as they get older. Because look at us, we definitely probably know other females who've been diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome at 16 or at 15 or at 14, and not when they're older like we are now in our 30s and in our 40s. So what advice would you give dads to be supportive and more in a role of knowledge and empowerment to kind of help support their daughters when it comes to menstrual health?
That's a beautiful question you just proposed, and a group that you don't think about as much, right? And so I think that's a really beautiful question. I would just say, give your daughter all the education she needs in that space, right? Because now technology is just literally at our fingertips, and so before it was, my mother gave me a necklace when I had my period, and I had my period when I was 9 years old, right? And this is the time of the month, and this is what you do. But no one said, oh, this is the time of the month, but this is like this part of the cycle, and there's 3 parts of the cycle, and it's the average part of the cycle is this, right? So it's important that you find that information to share with them. And then at the end of the day, at some point, it is up to the daughter to take that information in, but at least you provided it to her, right? At least you gave her something that not even the mothers will do, right? Because they don't know, right? So it's just important that you educate them. If it is a period app, right? If it is a device that you can, track, where your period is at that time, or your menstrual cycle, the power of what it can do. I think education is important. But you also have to be aware of what's going on too, right? It's important that you educate yourself. It's not just sending your daughter a link. It's also reading the link and understanding it as well. And then I think food is very important, because the minute that you are, eating a Taco Bell every night and all those chips and French fries, I mean, those were the good old days, right? Right now we can't do that. right? Things will happen. The gut will get bigger. Okay. So it's just important that you realize at some point you do have to proportion that out, or you do have to control it, because it's going to be a direct impact on your health, right? On your hormones, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am. So we
yeah.
got education,
Mhm.
and then we have awareness, and then we have food. I think that is definitely key in regards to dads and being able to help navigate that conversation and be a supportive parent and have a equal part in that role, even if there is a mom or without, to really just be a partnership when it comes to health. Because you also have to think that this child and her menstrual health also dictates the legacy of your family, because
Right.
she's the one who would continue to, carry on this family legacy that you're creating. So I think what stood out a lot for me is not only have I lost two line sisters due to cancer, and so I know that there's some two special girl dads in our lives, but it's also seeing that beneath the belt, that endometriosis documentary, and I actually saw like a dad take a really strong role in his daughter's life when it came to fighting for her endometriosis treatment. And it was just like, this is so beautiful seeing
Yeah.
fathers in this space, because you're so, strong with seeing a mother, because your mother could empathize and, a little
Right.
bit more about, menstrual cycles and stuff, because they've been in those shoes. But to see dad stand up in that role, I thought it was just very important. And I don't think it should be at a critical point that a dad is now brought into a conversation about what's going on with their child's health,
Right.
because
Right.
I think menstrual health is still a part of regular health. And I don't know why we have to taboo it or separate it as if it's something that we still can't talk about. Just like you said, talking about your physical health. If I'm mindful of what you're eating for dinner or breakfast or for lunch, I should be just as mindful of what's actually happening in your body and what's going on, so we know what's normal and what's not normal. I love that you talked about being aware and tracking the menstrual cycle. And not only is just this is when it comes on, but also what you're feeling, what those symptoms look like. Am I having low back pain? Are my periods very heavy where I'm bleeding out my pads every 30 minutes? Do I know when to change my menstrual, my feminine products? Do I know what type of product? Should I be all organic? Should I just pick up whatever the cheapest option is? So I think education is really key. And like you said, don't just send a link, but know, and let's talk about it and figure out the best way of making decision when it comes to it. But a lot of times my students, their stomach is hurting, they're cramping, and I ask, and then I see, what were you eating before? And it was either high processed foods, or it was a lot of dairy, or it was a lot of sugar. And so I try to let them know, hey, around this time we need to really ramp up the fruits and vegetables, so that way you feel a lot better while your body is cleansing, because that's all a menstrual cycle is
Right.
a cleanse. And you really want a nice good cleanse that feels good and not so nasty and painful and debilitating, because that's not normal, and we don't want to normalize that.
Right. And it could be a point that if you start living that lifestyle, that you like don't have cramps. So during that period, that's like I've had that happen many times before, and I'm like, this is good.
This
This
is
feels
the life. And I'm
good.
like, at that point, it's like, let me look at my period and see when the period is supposed to be coming, so it doesn't catch me off guard, because I'm used to getting those little knocks on the uterus that say, hey, I'm coming. And, start having the PMS, start having the cramps before it even gets here. And now that the lifestyle is changed, I don't even know it's coming, and it just goes and it's not there as long. So really those lifestyle changes and adopting those healthy habits could really, really shift your experience when it comes to your menstrual health, but your overall well-being, even with your mindset. Like, look at us right now. Like, you don't always see people with polycystic ovary syndrome being able to show up visibly, vocally, vibrantly, talking about their experiences, and not, just getting such stiffness and tense and drawn and depressed and all these issues and getting into this victim mindset, because it's
Yeah.
not getting us anywhere. We're talking about patient experiences. We're talking about being advocates. We're talking about being empowered. We're talking about some of the changes we've had. We're talking about the glows, but we're also saying, here's some of the grows, here's a loss for me. You know what I mean? Here's a season for me. But at the end of the day, we're still going, we're still thriving, we're still smiling, we're still showing up where it matters most. And I think that's the reason why I just appreciate being able to share journeys of strength for women like us that are experiencing issues with endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, adenomyosis, fibroids, or any other health conditions that show up on this platform, because we want you to be empowered and we want you to live a vibrant life. But we also know that some of it boils down to just some of the simple things, like what we choose to put on our plate, what we choose to think, believe about ourselves, and how we move our body and appreciate our body, just how we show up in love for your own healing, because it is really your true journey. But you look like you was going to say something.
No, when you really look up these conditions, there's no magic pill for it, but there is a common thread that they do say, oh, lifestyle changes will help, right? And that's just crazy because you said simple things, and then that made me think of lifestyle changes. And so when you do those lifestyle changes, and they're saying a chronic condition, lifestyle changes will help. Oh my gosh, like we just like eliminated the pharmaceutical companies. Like, if we're able to commit to that and embrace it, right? And I'm
That's
not
the big
saying
word: commit and embrace. Commit and embrace. You just said that, Candice. Commit and embrace. You can't just try it. You have to be committed to it, and you really have to embrace it. And I tell people that all the time when they're starting to make those lifestyle changes, because it's not always as easy, but it can be done. And it's not about what you're replacing, it's about what you're embracing. So if you're embracing overall well-being, if you're embracing less pain, if you're embracing, I want a good quality of life, if you're embracing, I want healing, I want to feel better about myself, I want to love myself. If you're embracing those things, you're not focused on what you're trying to replace that you're so used to. You're embracing the healing that you know you deserve, the healing that you know is on the other side of just continuing to make the best decisions for yourself. So I think that's what matters the absolute most. And that's why, we're here, Candice as your wellness coach, and then, me as your healthy habits and lifestyle, because we just want you to be empowered about taking these chances to commit and embrace to the life that you deserve, despite whatever diagnosis, obstacle, or challenge you might face. But last question, and then I'll let you dive on out of this studio. But if you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be, and what would you all eat?
Historical figure. Can you describe that?
Historical figure. It's up to you. So I always tell people that get a little stumped on this. For my granddaddy, it's changed. Before, I was a historical figure. Another time I asked my granddaddy, it was my grandma. So it just really just depends on who you want your historical figure to be. Because it doesn't have to be someone that's deceased. It's all up to you. Who would that historical be, and what would you all eat?
So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm a big Prince fan. Like I love
the hair blowing the other day.
Oh my yes. All that flowy hair, Prince. I love that you at that time, right? I would love to have a lunch, a dinner, or breakfast, just something I would not eat. I would just stare at him, just in awe of a genius. And that's how that meal would go. It would be great food in front of us, healthy food, because he's all about the healthy eats. But I would just stare at him.
So what do you think Prince would have been eating then, while you would just be looking at him? What would Prince be eating? Give us this plate. Give us this plate.
I think he has some humor too, because he has a song, breakfast can wait, can't wait. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. What would you eat? I don't know. I think he would eat pretty healthy. And then I think he would have something bad at the end. So I think he would have like, something lean, like maybe some salmon and some brown rice and some sauteed vegetables. But then I can see him eating like a cheesecake at the end, like just something bad, like just to put a little dash of badness in there. So, the purple one does things like that.
Okay. I got you. Understood. Well, man, I appreciate you for just showing up, being visible, being vocal, but just saying, you know what? I believe in empowering others to live an empowered life. And joining me here in the studio on the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. What I'd love for you to do is let everybody know where they can follow you. Tell them a little bit about your tea, and just leave the people with a good cup full of delight message before we close out this episode.
I will. I want to say thank you for allowing me to speak on this platform and sharing with your community. I love Empowered Plates. I love what you're doing. I love watching your journey, right? Because you're real, you're genuine. You're not saying that you just had this overnight thing, but this is a journey for you. But this is how you're overcoming everything. And I think that's just a beautiful, pure message that needs to be shared to so many different communities, right? And so I would say with Cupful Delights, you can find us on cupfuldelights.com. You can follow us on IG, right, with Cupful Delights. And I have two of my favorite teas. We have 4 teas out right now. One is called Unleash the Queen. And the idea behind it is that, there's queens, we're all queens, right? And sometimes we just need to come out and we need to show up, right? So Unleash the Queen is a spearmint-based tea. It helps balance hormones, especially that hair that we may be experiencing, blood pressure, stress, and weight. And then sometimes we do need energy. Okay. Right. And so I like to I'm off coffee. I gave up coffee too, by the way. And so this is called Be Ready. And Be Ready is a green tea. It is a green tea. So it has caffeine in it, but it's a good base caffeine, right? It's not as high as coffee, but it also allows you to have that energy. And then it helps with your digestion and antioxidants. Like green tea is coming through for you, right? It's your hero, it's your shero. And so I leave you, with this. You are your best advocate, but you have to study yourself. You have to take the time to learn you, because no one else will, right? So love yourself to be your best advocate. Thank you so much, Giovanni. I really appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. I hope you enjoyed this Journey of Strength episode with Candice, Cupful Delights. Please make sure you are following and connected with us on all social media platforms. All of that information is below in the description, as well as Candice. And then if you are trying to take this approach on your healing journey, you can get a free guide down below. If you are struggling with polycystic ovary syndrome or endometriosis, there's a comprehensive healing guide that's also free to get you started when it comes to mindset, mindful eating, and movement. Also, a plant-based alternatives to kind of help you kind of lean away from processed foods and really start taking some of your favorite meals and swapping them out with some nutritious options. But again, all that information is in the description. Thank y'all for vibing with us. We really appreciate y'all. Be well, but don't forget to continue to love you on your own journey, because it is your healing, your journey. We out of this thing. Ta-ta.
Bye.